on, guys? Today we're...
Don't say that.
Good young lad.
Man right there. I'm nowhere close to getting monetized, but I'm about to be demonetized.
Welcome back to the series where I am taking my 2002 Chevy Astro van, converting it to a car camper that can take me anywhere I want it to go, and look pretty cool. Before we jump into the video today, I want to remind you that if you want to join the goofiest car community on the entire internet, all you got to do is like and subscribe, and be sure to comment down below, what are you most excited about in life right now? I'm excited to get into this video. Now, the scariest thing to notice when you buy a used vehicle, especially here in the Midwest, is rust. Now, rust can ruin pretty much any component of the car, but really, the underbody is the most troubled area typically. A lot of times you get rust on your frame, and that's not good because that frame holds you up. And if you don't have that frame, then you're driving on the ground. Long story short, your frame can rust through your sick ride, leaving you with no joy inside. This is why I went ahead and bit the bullet and I undercoated the Astro van. Now, I use fluid film. A lot of this is going to be pertaining to fluid film. A lot of these principles carry over. Now, before you get spray happy like you're in Mad Max Fury Road, you gotta be sure that you got the right supplies and you're following all the right safety steps. Let's go over some of those. In terms of supplies, first off, you're obviously gonna need whatever you're using to spray. Whether that is some type of rubberized undercoating, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend if you already have rust on it, but that's a whole different story and don't even worry about it. I'm not even gonna talk about it in this video. Or fluid film or something similar like that. We went with the cans, but you can 100% get the just the liquid itself if you have a sprayer that will allow you to spray through it. It'll probably be easier and quicker, but the cans honestly weren't that bad. They were pretty good. Next, and debatably most importantly, is your face and eye protection. Now, these fluid films, they spit out a lot of chemicals, and a lot of chemicals that you don't want to be breathing in, you don't want to be getting in your eyes. Also, if you're going to be removing any rust before spraying this on, you could get rust all over you. Don't want that stuff heading down your schnoz, all right? Now, we got some pretty basic, but will get the job done type of face masks. If you're concerned about it, go ahead and do your research. And if you're not concerned about it, don't blame me. We also just generally had safety glasses, but be sure to pick some up. Easy enough to get at Home Depot, off Amazon, whatever. Be sure to prevent those things, those crunchy, wet things in your eye socket, because you only get one pair typically. And don't forget that your bones are wet right now, all right? Thanks to John Green. Next supply is a wire wheel and a hand wire brush. Now, that was just the easiest way for me to get everything off. I just threw a wire wheel on my drill and went to town. Whatever you find is best for getting rust off for you is great. Now, the next thing on the list is the 360-degree nozzle thing. I described it really eloquently on the day of, so just gotta watch that clip while I get this sorted. First, we're gonna do inside of the frame stuff with this little guy that comes with fluid film. You can just buy it. It sprays real good, right? Look at that. Every direction. And then you can breathe those chemicals. Where are we going to put the logo? We sure do have a way with words, don't we? I also picked up some tarps in the event of the area that you're like working in being delicate on the ground or grass around it and stuff. You know, you want to protect the ecosystem. Now, the last two items are going to be a couple of the first items that you're going to end up using. And there's a good reason for that, because it is a good floor jack and jack stands. You don't really want to cheap out on these because they might save your life and they last forever. Like you buy good jack stands, they last your life. Next, we're going to go ahead and follow 4 simple steps in order to, you know, do the actual project itself. Those 4 steps are going to be jack, rust, spray, lower. Now, the first step to this is going to be to jack up your car. All right. So if you have a rich friend who has a lift, that's way better. And you should go ahead and, hold on. Be sure to hang out with your rich friends who might have a lift. If they don't have a lift, that's okay. Neither my friends aren't rich either. Now, you want to be sure during this step to be safe and take your time. You're also going to want to set up your tarps if you have tarps. Be sure to jack your car up high enough so that you can move freely around under there. You don't want to be immobile with a wire brush kind of like this, you know, kind of like this. I was kind of like that when we tried to put me on wheels. I'll show, yeah. Now we're on to step 2. This is rust removal. That's right, it's time to get a little dirty, take care of what you need to take care of, especially if you have an older car. If you have a newer car, there's a good chance you don't need to do much on this step. But why are we removing rust in the first place? Number 1, because rust will fall off, especially all that loose rust that you have. If you spray this stuff under there and some water hits up there, it's just gonna knock those pieces off. And so then instead of your fluid film protecting the underbody of your car, it's down at the turnpike, just sitting there, probably getting ran over by a Honda Civic. Reason number 2 why we remove the rust is because it absorbs so much of that liquid. Okay, so if you have a rusty car, likely it's gonna take more fluid film to spray under it, because instead of just coating it, it's got to seep into all of those little cracks and crevices that the rust creates. You don't want to go too hard on this because you don't want to eliminate anything that's actually structural, depending on how bad this rust was. The rust on my Astro was pretty much surface, so it wasn't that bad. I was still careful not to take too much off. If you're able to get a lot of this rust off, then all of a sudden you're saving money on supplies and you're contributing to the longevity of your vehicle. So way to go. You did great. On to step number 3. Step number 3 is spray. Now it's time to actually spray the fluid film on. This is what you've been waiting for pretty much the whole time. There's a couple things to take into account when spraying on this fluid film. Number 1, you want to be careful of certain areas, specifically your whole brake assembly. There's an issue that some people have where if you get some on the caliper or the rotor or any of the pads, it just kind of gunks everything up, and since it doesn't like really dry, it's just not great. Another helpful tip is you don't want to be like stingy with this stuff, especially if it's your first time doing this to your vehicle. After we finished up with the Astro van, we pulled up my friend Joe's Tacoma and we started spraying under there. We had to use a lot less spray because it just went a lot further. There wasn't as much to cover. Everything was pretty well good in place. There wasn't any rust. Basically, all you have to remember is if it's old and rusty, spray until you're crusty. If it's new and shiny, only spray a little tiny. I came up with that by myself, but I am not proud. I also wanted to use our secret tool from earlier to spray the inside of the frame because things on the inside rust as well. Now that we finished up spraying, it's time to move on over to step number 4. Step 4. Lower. Once you feel good about the amount of spray that you've done and you feel like everything's kind of buttoned up, feeling a lot better about the underbody of your vehicle, go ahead and get on out from there, get all your tools out from there, take out your jack stands and lower your vehicle. Now you're basically done, but here's a few notes. Because fluid film stays wet for basically the whole time that it's on there, it can get washed off from like pressure washers. Usually, from other people's reports, again, I haven't done this a ton, people are like, if you're driving down the road in a storm, it's not really gonna knock any of it off. But if you take it to the Moo Moo car wash and you get your underbody wash with your full clean, and your extra Moo Moo, then all of a sudden it's all coming off, okay? Once you're finished with this spray, it's a good time to go ahead and plan when you're gonna spray it again. Some folks go as often as 3 to 6 months, and I've even read that some people will wait 3 to 5 years to respray it. I'm not gonna act like I'm some type of like actual expert here. This is just what I've learned through my process. And so I'm gonna go ahead and spray it probably at the end of fall. Right now it's early spring, so I'm gonna wait about 6 months and then I'm gonna spray it before the Ohio winter sets in. At the end of the day, I was honestly pleasantly surprised with the whole process. First off, getting under there, getting a good look at what my future problems are going to be so that I can get ahead of them, as well as just knocking off some of that rust. I found out that I don't have near as much rust as I thought I did on the underbody. The frame looks good and we're gonna keep it protected. I was also surprised at just how easy this is. You know, some places are charging tons of money to do this, and especially if your car isn't old and rusty like mine, it doesn't take that long to do. Once we get up and going and I get this next spray down, it's gonna take me, you know, probably a half an hour to get it done. Jack up the car, spray, 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 put car down. I think this was just one of those projects I built up in my head to be like way more difficult than it actually was. So here's the thing. If you liked the video, you should probably go ahead and like and subscribe. Let me know your undercoating and fluid filming stories in the comments. Also, don't forget to comment what you're most excited about today. All right, you are loved. See you around.